Hey everyone, and welcome back to the ATD Movie Channel. I'm Tony, and today I'll be reviewing The Incredibles 2, directed by Brad Bird, starring Craig T. Nelson and Holly Hunter. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, so I've been looking forward to this Pixar sequel for a long time. I love the original Incredibles. In fact, it's probably my number 2 Pixar film of all time. I go back and forth, I seesaw back and forth, but it's up there. And I love the superhero genre, and the fact that Pixar made a superhero film was incredible to me, no pun intended. And here we are, we're back. And the movie picks up exactly where the first film left off. And I want to just spend a few minutes telling you what I liked about the film. Not what I didn't like necessarily, but what I would have done differently. Overall, I'm going to tell you right now, I loved it. It's really good, if not great. But let's dive deeper into the reasons why. The biggest thing I like is the family. The family atmosphere, or the family setup, is super unique to Pixar and the superhero genre in general. Fantastic Four has tried it before and failed, I think, multiple times. But seeing where everyone is at now, and the progression of each character and the continued arc of each character was really heartwarming, and it felt familiar. These are characters that we've fallen in love with over the course of the first film. And in watching the film and watching the parents' role reversal, which I'll dive into deeper in a minute, there's really interesting stuff. It gave us a reason to make a sequel. It gave Pixar a reason to make this movie outside of just a cash grab, where they have done that. They've done cash grabs, and this isn't one of them. I firmly believe that there was more story to tell with these characters. The other aspect of the movie I really liked is the action. And the action is a little bit more segmented in this film than the first one. And what do I mean by that? The first film, the third act, the entire third act is just one giant action set piece in the jungle. This one has more action sequences. They're just shorter, and they're spread out throughout the film. It works. Besides the first act, which I'll get to in a moment, the segmented action keeps us interested. It keeps us going, and it helps with the pacing of the film. And the action is spectacular. It's fun. It's creative. And it's inventive in the way that they do it, from stuff you've seen in the trailer to stuff that's not in the trailer at all that you really got to go to the movie to see. But there's a helicopter chase that is just fantastic. And there's other action set pieces that we haven't seen in live action. So to see it in animation is really special. And Pixar's the best. I mean, DreamWorks does a good job with their movies, but Pixar is the best at what they do. And it's no different with The Incredibles Part 2. So the action is top-notch. Another thing I really liked about the movie is something obviously started in the first, which is the world building. The first movie set us up for what kind of a world where these characters are inhabiting. The second film really flushes it out. And it's everything from the character design to the set designs to the action set pieces to the vehicles. I mean, you can see a familiar America in this film. It's retro, and you can tell it's from the 60s, but it's tweaked. And that tweak is what makes it so special and unique. You could see a building in the movie or just a vehicle and know that it's from the Incredibles universe. But also more than that, philosophically, it takes a deeper look at the world in terms of corporate America, society as a whole, the media, gender roles, and I think it does a really dang good job. I was hoping that it would dive deeper into sort of the world of superheroes in this imaginary timeline, and it did. And it was cool to see, because again, the design is one aspect of it, but the philosophical parts of the film are important too. It keeps me as an adult engaged and curious to see what happens next. Another thing I liked about the movie is it's really, really funny. It's much funnier than the first film. And that comedy is perfect for the characters, perfect. It's situational, and some of it is timely. It still relates to what's going on in today, but for the most part, I think it's a much funnier film than the first. Another thing I liked is the role reversal. I mentioned it earlier in terms of gender roles. And without spoiling anything, because I think that the trailers give it away, the Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl have sort of a gender reversal, role reversal, in that Mr. Incredible's got to stay home with the kids and take care of everything going on at home while Elastigirl goes out on a mission. and it's beautifully done, and it doesn't go over the top in terms of showing a dim-witted dad not being able to hold it together while the mom, which is the real glue of the family, goes out to save the world. I think it does it more cleverly than other sitcoms and movies. There's a sprinkle of that, you know, how the father can't handle it without the mother around. There's a sprinkle of that, but overall, it's really interesting, the female empowerment that's discovered during this film. I think it's important. I think it's important in today's pop culture. It's important in today's Me Too movement. I think it's really important that we see women fully able and capable of doing these things, whether it's a cartoon by Pixar or a real life CEO of a big Fortune 500 company. I think it's important. And the movie does it really well. It's not thrown in your face, but you see powerful women in this movie, and I think it's a really great message to send to kids across the country, across the world. So thumbs up to Disney Pixar for that. I would say there's only one thing I didn't like, and I'm going to start sounding like a broken record, especially if you subscribe to the channel, but the length of these movies and the pacing is really important to me. The first act is really slow, and I think it's necessary overall, because it's continuing to do some world building and setting up the plot line for the rest of the film. But it's so slow that it pulled me out of the film a little bit. I mentioned segmented action earlier. There's not a lot of action outside of that very first opening scene, and then there's a ton of dialogue and a ton of plot points in getting the story moving. And then once you hit the second act, you're off and running. But I do think it's a fair criticism to say that the first act is super, super slow. Doesn't ruin the film by any means, and you can even consider it a nitpick, but it was something that took me out of the film and something I thought I would share with everybody. In conclusion, this movie is a great movie. It's great. It's funny, it's charming, and it's got amazing action sequences. And unfortunately, every sequel is going to be compared to the original. It's just the way that we are. That's just the way we're built. It's good and it's great. It's just not as good as the first film. The first film is what I would consider a home run. The sequel is maybe a triple. And it's pretty close to a home run, but not quite there. And I don't know if the newness of the original and being introduced to these characters for the first time is what gives it a leg up on the sequel. But it's just not quite there. There's things that this movie does better than the original, like the comedy, in my opinion, and the more interesting action, but it's just shy of the greatness of the first film, and that's not a bad thing. The first film is so great, it's considered one of the best films of all time, animated or otherwise. So, in conclusion, I think it's fantastic. I think it's incredible, pun intended on both of those comments. I think Brad Bird and the entire voice cast, from Craig T. Nelson all the way down the line, do a magnificent job. Kudos to Disney, kudos to Pixar. I highly recommend it. So, have you seen The Incredibles 2? And have you seen the original? Can you compare the two? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified of content uploaded regularly. You can find other movie reviews on the channel as well. Thanks for watching my review of The Incredibles 2. I'll talk to you soon.